I got into work around 6 o'clock in the morning. Just the night before, I had wrapped up my shift at 10. On the way home, something unexpected happened. I came across this older man getting attacked on the sidewalk. I stepped in and helped him out. His name was David. We got to talking a little while we waited for the ambulance, and honestly, he seemed like a decent guy who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. That held me up more than I expected. My commute usually takes about an hour, so I should have been home by 11. But because of everything with David, I did not walk through my front door until close to 11:45 p.m. My wife, Isabella, was still up. She had some leftovers waiting, nothing fancy, just something to put in my stomach, and we sat together for a few quiet minutes. I finally crawled into bed around 12:30 in the morning. The alarm went off at 4:15. No time to think, just up and moving. Got dressed, poured some strong coffee, and headed straight back in for another shift. By 6:15 a.m., I was on front desk duty when this guy walked in. His name was Kevin. Right away, I could tell he was nervous, fidgety, almost like he was unsure if he should even be there. He told me he thought his wife, Mia, was missing, but he was real short on details. I had to ask a bunch of follow-up questions just to piece together what had happened. Turns out they got into an argument the night before. Mia stormed out and never came home. I ran her name through the system and something popped up. She was listed as a respondent on a couple of domestic violence orders. That raised a flag for me. I figured Kevin might have filed them, but after digging a little deeper, I found out they were actually filed by her son, Oliver.
I was running on empty at that point, tired to the bone and getting a little short on patience. I glanced over the basic info I had in front of me and told Kevin he should head home and wait for Mia, just in case she'd turned up on her own. After that, I did what I could. I checked all the nearby hospitals to make sure she had not been admitted. Then I ran her name through our system to see if she had been picked up or arrested overnight. Nothing. I even checked in with the local fire and ambulance dispatches. Still came up with nothing. I went ahead and circulated Mia's details to every unit in the city and logged the incident properly. On paper, I had done everything I needed to do, enough to cover myself if anyone came asking, and technically, there was not much else I could do at that point. So I got up, grabbed a cup of coffee, and leaned against the counter. All I really wanted was to close my eyes for a minute. But something about the whole thing kept bugging me. It just did not feel right. Kevin, there was something off about him. He came across like a guy who was not telling me everything, like he was holding something back. And that feeling stuck with me. I headed down to talk to my skipper and asked if I could swing by Kevin's house, just to take another look around and maybe have another word with him. The boss wasn't exactly thrilled about the idea, mostly because we were short on people that day, and it meant he'd have to cover the front desk himself. But to his credit, he agreed without too much of a fight. Like a real team player. So off I went. When I got to the house, Kevin opened the door looking about the same as before. Tense, kind of distant. I told him I just wanted to take a look around. Said maybe something in the house could give us a clue about where Mia might have gone. He nodded and let me in without much pushback. I started poking around, just keeping an eye out for anything that seemed off or out of place. Pretty quickly, I noticed a bunch of prescription pill bottles with names I did not recognize. So I took out my phone and looked them up. What I found was pretty concerning. Mia was apparently on a whole mix of medications, antidepressants, mood stabilizers, and a few others that made me raise an eyebrow. And then I came across something else, an insulin kit, sitting on the dresser. That gave me pause. I turned to Kevin and asked him about all of it. He kind of shrugged and said Mia had dealt with some emotional problems, but he didn't think any of that was important to what was going on now. That did not sit right with me. So I sat him down and leveled with him. I told him straight, there's a lot of serious medication in this house, and I wanted to know if Mia had more than one insulin kit. The second I asked, his face drained of color. He finally admitted she had left the house without taking any of her medication. I asked Kevin where Mia usually kept her purse. He muttered something and led me back to the bedroom. We checked her nightstand, top drawer of the bedside table. The purse was gone. That might have meant she left intentionally, but I still had no clue what she looked like. So I picked up a small framed photo from the table, just something I could hold on to in case I needed to show other units or keep it in mind later. I turned to Kevin again and asked if he was okay with me taking a proper look around the room. By then, he was unraveling fast. His face looked pale, his breathing was all over the place. He waved his hand like he didn't care and said something like, "Do whatever you want," then walked out and disappeared down the hallway. I heard him drop onto the couch in the living room a few seconds later. At that point, I was running on fumes. My stomach felt tight, and my head was starting to pound from the lack of sleep. Still, I kept going. I looked through the closet. Everything looked in place. No empty hangers, no sign she had packed anything or taken clothes with her. Checked under the bed, checked the drawers. No hidden envelopes of cash, no obvious signs of drugs or anything shady. Then something just nudged me. I could not even explain why, but I turned and looked at the bed again. Something told me to check it.
I flipped over Kevin's pillow, not really expecting much, and that is when I saw it. A folded piece of paper, tucked just underneath. I opened it up, and my stomach dropped. It was a suicide note. There was no doubt about it. Mia had written it out clearly, no guessing involved. She said she could not go on any longer. She apologized for being a burden. The tone was final, like she had made peace with a decision no one should ever have to make. I grabbed my radio and called it in, let the station know what I had found, and gave them an update on the situation. Then came the part I was dreading. I had to walk back down to the living room and face Kevin. I had to look this man in the eye and tell him that he had spent the night sleeping on his wife's suicide note and never even realized it was there. I have done a lot of hard things in this job, things I try not to carry with me. But that moment, that conversation, it's up there with the worst of them, right behind dealing with dead kids.
It took me another 8 hours before I finally found her. We managed to ping Mia's phone, and the signal came back from a small town about an hour outside the city. It did not give us anything exact, just a rough area, but at least it was something, better than nothing. I sat there staring at the map on the screen, trying to make sense of why she would go there of all places. I got Kevin on the line again and asked him straight, did Mia have any connection to this town? Friends, relatives, work, anything? He paused for a second and said no, nothing came to mind. She had no reason to be out there, according to him. So I marked it down, but did not have much else to go on. About 15 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Kevin. His voice sounded different this time, tired, quieter, like something had finally clicked. He told me that after our last call, he had been thinking, and it hit him. He and Mia had spent a weekend in that town years ago, not long after they got married. Just a small getaway. One of those little coastal towns with an old fishing pier and a cheap hotel, the kind where time feels like it moves a little slower. That was the first real lead I had all day. I thanked him, hung up, and started digging. I managed to track down the name of the hotel they had stayed at back then and gave them a call. A woman answered, polite but guarded. I asked if they had anyone staying under Mia's name, but she checked the register and said, nope, no one by that name had checked in. Still, something in my gut told me not to let it go, so I got in my car and drove down there myself. It took just under an hour, and the whole way there I was going over the suicide note in my head, wondering if I was already too late. When I walked into the hotel lobby, it looked pretty much like what I expected. Small, quiet, a little dated but clean. The kind of place where couples go to disappear for a weekend. I approached the front desk and pulled out the photo I had taken from her nightstand. I showed it to the woman behind the counter and asked her if she had seen this person.
She stared at it for a few seconds, then looked up at me and said, "Yeah, I think that's her. She checked in yesterday under a different name." Then she pointed toward the window and added, "She just headed down to the pier for a walk."
I walked out to the pier and spotted Mia standing at the far end, leaning on the railing and staring out at the water. The wind had picked up a little, and the sky was starting to turn that late afternoon gray. She looked over her shoulder as I got closer and said, "You look awful." I let out a small breath. "Yeah," I said. "It's been a long day." We stood there for a minute without saying much. Then I told her that Kevin was worried sick, that he loved her. I said maybe, just maybe, she could give life a little more time, a few more days. Things might not feel so heavy after that. She didn't break down or anything. She just stood quiet for a moment, then said, "I didn't think anyone would miss me." "You're wrong about that," I told her. "People care more than you think." She gave a small nod, nothing big, but it was enough. I called it in, and we made our way back to the car. She got in without a word, and I drove her home.
A couple days later, Mia showed up at the station. She did not say much, just walked in, handed over a small box of chocolates and a card to the officer at the desk, and asked if he could make sure I got them. The card was simple. Inside, in plain handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for not letting me kill myself." I read it once, then again, and I just stood there for a while. Because the truth was, I had almost let it go. I had done my part, ticked the boxes, filled out the forms. It would have been easy to move on. When that hit me, I went out back to the restroom, locked the door, and threw up. Not from the smell or the stress, but from the realization of just how close I had come to losing someone I never even knew. It sat in my gut like a stone. A few weeks after that, I got a letter from her son, Oliver. He thanked me too. Not in some big dramatic way, but in the kind of words that told me he meant it. He said things had been rocky with his mom for a long time, but he was trying to give her a second chance. Said he didn't want to lose her before they figured things out. That hit just as hard. I still get the same card from Mia every Christmas. Same message, same handwriting, always just one line. I keep them all in my locker at work, tucked behind some old shift rosters and traffic summonses. Sometimes when I'm having a rough day, I pull one out and read it. It reminds me why I still do this job, even when the hours are long and the world feels like it's burning down. A few years have passed now. Mia's doing better, from what I hear. She and Kevin ended up separating not long after, but it wasn't bitter, just one of those things that needed to happen. She started volunteering at a crisis center last year. Funny how things come full circle. As for me, well, I still carry that case around in my head, not because it was dramatic or violent or made the news, but because it almost didn't happen, almost slipped right through the cracks. And I think about how easy it is to miss something important when you're tired, overworked, and just trying to keep up. That's what sticks with me. Not the paperwork, not the chocolate, just that someone lived, because for once, I didn't stop at good enough.